Hey guys, and welcome back to some more Factorio sending supporters to space. And today we are going to do some work with the Covrex enrichment process. I did finish the research for it, you can see here, and I did a couple extra things off camera as well. You may notice some extra rails in the base. I'm just going to do a quick recap of what I did. So let's see. Oh yeah. So we got some great spaghetti going on here, some top-notch spaghetti stuff. We have our stone train coming all the way into our base, essentially. And I've done some interesting work with the belt. We have a 4-lane balancer. It comes through here, under here. I actually really like this. This looks really cool. And then I've combined these two lines here to be put into the network, and then I've combined these two lines with a red splitter into a red belt, because 2 yellow belts is exactly 1 red belt. And we sent it down to the stone over here, which is working. And also, I brought in the copper train over here. This is a bit of a mess. It's kind of just the T-junction, and then this goes in here. This isn't going to be here forever. And then, yeah, so the copper just comes out. I haven't connected it to anything yet because we don't need it yet. But it is here if we do need it. And then I also finished out the stone outpost. I brought this track back behind the forest like I said I would, brought it down and brought it in, and it is working. Obviously the train is at base, so it's not doing anything. And then I also cleaned up our diagonal track a little bit, and you may not notice much difference, but I messed around with the length of it and how the track was in regards to, people had mentioned it was like, the track was farther past the power pole on one end than it was on the other. So I fixed that up, as you can see, and I changed the signal placement so it's a little better. This diagonal should work much better for us. So I did that, and then yeah, I finished the research, and that was about it. So now working on the Covrex enrichment process. Now, one thing I really like about this is that there's many different ways you can do it, and quite a few of them are all correct or will all work. I guess a better way to say it would be that there are multiple ways to do this that will all work. So, you know, the way I'm going to show, I'm not claiming it to be best. It's most likely not best, but it does work, and there's probably 10 or 20 other ways to do it besides mine that will also work, which I like about it. You know, there's a lot of variation, a lot of creativity you can do with it. So what is the Covrex process? Well, what this does is this essentially allows you to get more of the good uranium. Now, I'm going to refer to these as good uranium and bad uranium because it's easier to say than, you know, 235 or U238. So the good stuff is the U235, and the bad stuff is the U238. Okay, because the good stuff is what you use to make the fuel cells primarily. Well, it's the stuff that's really hard to get, rather. And then you also use it for nukes and such. So what this does is this takes in 40 of the good uranium and 5 of the bad uranium, and it outputs 41 of the good stuff and 2 of the bad stuff. So when it's all said and done, essentially, you are getting 1 good uranium in exchange for 3 bad uranium, right? Because you're inputting 40 and getting an excess of 1, and then you're inputting 5 of the bad and essentially losing 3. And these attacks, man, these biters are just gonna, I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill them all. So I've kind of started set something up here. We have 2 centrifuges. That's about it. In terms of what we have, I can make more if I go get materials, but we'll start with 2. I actually have like I said, I have a design in mind. I designed it on stream quite a while ago. It was at least a month or 2 ago. It was a design I came up with a bit of help from the people watching the stream, because it does require some smarts. Doing the Covrex process usually requires some smarts to make it work correctly. There are some builds that don't. Mad Zuri, for example, has a build that requires no smarts, that is completely belt-based, but he asked me not to share it, which is understandable, and then also I don't remember how to build it anyways. So there are ways to do this without smarts, but I actually am quite fond of the way I came up with, because it's not too complicated and it does work. So we're going to get started here, and the reason, let me just quickly explain, the reason you do need some sort of belt trickery or smart thing for this is because if, for example, if we have this outputting just onto a belt, right? So he's outputting the good uranium onto a belt, and then this guy grabs some, and then this guy grabs some, and then outputs or grabs, and then whatever. But the thing is, you don't want this just outputting all the 41 it gets onto the belt, because if this guy, say, only managed to grab 38 of it, and then this one grabs the excess, neither of these are going to work, and then you're kind of in a hole, right? You need to make sure that it grabs pretty much exactly the 40 that it needs, and that the extra one gets passed along to the next machine down the line, rather than just passing all of it through and hoping that things work. So that's why just placing it straight on just one belt like this doesn't work without some sort of trickery. What we're going to do is, first off, we're going to have some chests on either side that we're going to pass through, because we do need these chests to essentially measure the amount. So first off, we're going to have some stack filter inserters, and we're using these because we only want to export the good uranium out this side. We don't want to be taking the too bad uranium we get from this process and mixing it in, because that's just going to cause a mess. So he can only grab the good uranium, and we're also going to override the stack bonus. Now, it's already set to 10 because we don't have the full research, right? Once we got this, though, we do want to override it because we do want it to only grab 10. So I'm just going to do that anyways. And then this one doesn't really matter in terms of the stack size. It's just going to grab all that's in there of the bad stuff. And then we'll start with this side. So this guy inputs some 10 at a time into this box. So now we want some inserters to pass along the extra one. And then we also want some, and these actually need to be stacks. We want some inserters to bring essentially the other 40 back into the machine to start it again, right? So that it can continually work. And these guys we also want to override so they only grab 10 at a time. And this is really important, and you'll see why in a second. Now we need to use some wiring. Apparently I have to make circuits by hand. So first we want to wire these fast inserters to this box. And we want to tell them to only grab if there is exactly one good uranium in here. So these things can only work when there is exactly one good uranium left in this box. And you're probably wondering, Xterm, how do you plan to have it so that there is only one? What if this guy just grabs, all of it? But that's why this stack size, is set to 10. That's part of it. So this is essentially forced to only grab in sets of 10. And then also, we're going to wire this one to the box. Just copy this condition to this one. Wire this guy to the box, and he's only going to work if it's more than one. Okay, so he grabs in sets of 10, and then if it's more than one, he'll work. If it's 1 or 0, he won't work, right? So pretty much how this is going to work is, since this guy does in sets of 10s, and this guy does in sets of 10, so this produces 41, right? So export 10, grab 10, export 10, grab 10, export 10, grab 10, export 10, grab 10, and then export 1, the one that's left. And this guy's going to be like, oh, there's one in here? Cool, I can work. He's going to grab the one. This guy's going to be like, well, there's not more than one. There's only one, so I can't work. So this is going to make sure that 40 gets passed through here every time, and that the extra one always gets output onto the belt. Okay, so that's how that works. And I'm just going to copy this. And then the other part of it, and this is where we need some combinator, but it's a very, very simple condition for this. This part of it is we need to essentially take the extra one, right, and move it on to the next machine. Now on this first one, we don't need to take the extra one. We're going to put this here, A, so it makes it tileable, and 2, here I go with my mixing letters and numbers. B, because we're going to start it with its initial 40 from this box, so we do want this set here to work. So we take some normal inserters, and we want to override them to 1. Okay, this is pretty, well, it's not essential, actually, but I like to do it just in case. And then we take some arithmetic or arithmetic combinators, and the main disadvantage to this build, I guess, is that you need a combinator for each thing. There's probably some way to do it with just one for all of it that I'm sure people will know, but I don't know how to do it. and this is really simple, so I'm just going to keep it like this. And essentially what this thing's going to do is this is just literally going to act as a counting machine. Because what we want is we want this inserter to stop grabbing stuff once it's grabbed 40 items, right? So ignore it on this first one, okay? But this one outputs the extra ones, right? And it goes down to this guy. Again, ignore this first inserter on this one for now. But he's going to export. It's going to go down to this guy. We want him to, grab 40 sets of that, essentially, grab 40 pieces to start this one. But once it's done that, this thing can run on its own because of the system we have here. So we don't want him grabbing even more than 40. We don't want him grabbing more because we want it to move on to the next one, and it would be pointless to keep feeding it to this when it can already run on its own at this point. So we need this to, number one, only grab 40 and no more than 40, but also be able to actually count how many it has grabbed. And you can't do that with inserters like themselves. There's no option to just, say like count how many items you've grabbed. So this is where we need the combinators. So we take this and we wire the, first off, let's wire the, we need to wire the output of this combinator to the input of itself. Okay, because this is going to act as a counter. So we take this and we just click on the output, wire it to the input, like so. And we take the inserter and we wire the inserter to the input because it needs to read the inserters, right? So he's going to go here. And in this combinator condition, it's very simple. All we do is we take uranium-235, good uranium, we add 0 to it, and we output the amount. So what this is going to do is this just acts as a counting machine, as I've said before. But we're essentially saying, so this thing grabs one. It's going to input a count of 1 uranium. It's going to add 0 to it. So it just adds 0. Nothing happens. And then it's going to output the input count, essentially, right? Because we've added 0. So it's going to input 1. It's going to output 1 and such back to the inserter. And then the inserter condition, A, we need to tell it to read hand contents. This is very important because that's the only way it's going to know what it's grabbed. And then B, we need to go into here and we need to say that you can only work if it's less than 40. Okay, so as long as the combinator is telling this that, is giving it a count less than 40, it can work because that means the inserters grab less than 40 uranium. As soon as it's higher than 40, then it will stop working, right? So we now need to copy this, and then on this other side, it's actually really simple. All we need to do is just do this and then just a pass-through system again. And the only things we need to wire up are these inserters here. And the reason for this is because if you just let these work like infinitely, it's going to fill up this box. You could cap the box, but that'll still not work because you're going to be adding more to it. This is going to be putting 2 back into it, and if it fills up, this whole thing's going to jam and not work. So this is just extremely simple. We just say if there is more than 50, or rather a better way to say it is if there's less than 50 in this box, you can work. Okay, so you do need to consistently feed it with this bad stuff because, again, it essentially takes 3 to give you one of the good things. So it is eating it consistently, but this will stop it from backing up the box. And I use 50 just because it's a multiple of 5. So I don't know, it just seemed good that way. And then we're just going to do this. So he's already going to feed this. And then, again, these guys just grab it. It passes it back through so it can restart. And that should be everything. I'm just double checking my conditions. And I should be good to go. So now we're just going to insert 40. I want to only insert 40. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and there we go. So I'm going to leave that there. We can make some fuel cells out of that. We also actually have another 1 and 10, 11. So we actually have 25 of this we can already make fuel cells out of. But we're going to insert the 40 here. Now this guy is limited to a stack size of 1, 2 to start feeding this because we want to make sure that this can grab all of it. Because again, if this guy misses even just one of it, let's just say, for example, you were starved on it and you only had the 40. Let's just say we didn't have this extra. You know, if it misses one, then you're gonna have to manually go in here and grab it and put it back in here and make sure it works. So this guy's going, and you can see here, right? Input count 18, output count 18. So it's literally just outputting the input count and it's counting them. So you'll see that once it hits 40, this inserter should have the little symbol here, the little green light, if you can see it, should turn red and stop it from working, considering I did my condition correctly. So he's just gonna go, we're at 38, 9, 40, boom, red. He's not gonna grab anymore. So the one that this one outputs is gonna move on past this and go to this one and feed it. And once this gets its initial 40 from this one, right, because the whole point of this is we now never have to give this any more good uranium, because this will just keep producing more and more and more, albeit slowly. And then once this hits 40, this guy's going to stop grabbing, he's going to output, pass along, so on and so forth. And once you get a huge chain of these, you actually get an insane amount of this stuff. So that is, that's how that works. That is my Coverx enrichment process build. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in regards to it. And, or anything else for that matter, obviously. I think it works. I'm not sure. Like I said, there's obviously many different ways to do it. Some of them don't use combinators, some of them use more combinators, so on and so forth. But I'm actually quite fond of this one. I'm just going to stand here and watch this just to show you. Because you'll see that this guy outputs 10 at a time, he grabs 10 at a time, and there will be the one less photor. 10, 10, 1, and he already passed it along, and he's going to grab it. Boom. And then this will slowly start over. Okay, so these are slow. I'm going to really quickly go down and grab some of the speed 3 modules we have, because I would like that to move a little bit quicker. Hopefully the power for that we do. We're not doing any research. I'm letting the resources build up a bit because, you know, I'm going to need them for the reactors and the turbines. And to start with, I am going to use vanilla nuclear items instead of the ones Hope did, just because people wanted to see that. I will do... I will use Hopes as we get later on and just need more power and really need game performance. But I think in terms of demonstration tutorial purposes, it is best to use the vanilla ones right off the bat. So we're just going to go stick these speed 3s into the machines and hopefully pick up the process. Now you cannot use productivity modules in these. In the initial 0.15 release, you actually could, and it was insanely broken. It was definitely an oversight, because what happened in the first release of 15 is that you could put productivity modules in these, and instead of outputting just an extra 1, it actually output the entire 41 again when you got your productivity bar. So when your productivity bar got full, you were actually getting like 82 of this stuff per thing. It was absolutely ridiculous. So they very quickly, I think like the same day almost, patched that. So you can no longer put productivities in these, but speeds you can, which should help this move along. I absolutely love these machines. One of my favorite things in 0.15. So this guy already has 2. I could feed him some more. In fact, I will. I'll feed him the... Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in the box. And it should work the same way. I was going to stick it in here, but that'll break it because it won't count the inserter. So he's just going to grab. It's going to count it again, so he knows he's grabbed enough. That'll just move it along a little bit quicker, because we still have like the 11 or whatever in the other part that we can do fuel cells. And I mean, that's over 100 fuel cells, because you get 10 per process. That should last quite a while. An insane amount of time, actually, because each one lasts 200 seconds in a reactor. So there you go. That's the build. That's pretty much going to be this episode. I think we're at time or a little over time, and I know that's all we did here, but I did want to actually build it on camera and walk you guys through the process. In case people are struggling with this, maybe this gave you a better idea of how to do it. I will include this once I get my blueprint book together for all the builds in this series, and I do plan to do that soon, I promise you. This will be included, of course. I will include this, all my science builds, all the smelters, all that stuff, and I will just share it. So that's pretty much going to do it for this one, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy and found it helpful, feel free to leave a like. And again, leave your thoughts down in the comments. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.